The topic that I'd like to speak with you about is one that I don't know how good I do at it, but I guess I can talk with you and I can remind myself regarding generosity. As you look into becoming more self-sufficient, I think we can be careful that we don't have too much self-focus, where we're just thinking about ourselves all the time, and we pull away from systems and people that we don't trust, and we become self-focused instead of generous. So there are two mindsets. The first mindset is a mindset of poverty. The mindset of poverty tends to have a finite viewpoint of the world, where there are finite resources in the world, and if someone has too much, another person has too little. The other mindset is a mindset of abundance. The mindset of abundance is a more infinite mindset but it requires us to engage in being productive so that everyone can have plenty, instead of some having a lot and others having a little. In order to be generous, we have to have stuff. You can't be generous if you don't have something to be generous with. And I think the team ahead of us displayed that well, because if they would have been stingy with their talents, they wouldn't have come up here. So we all have something, but in order to have something, we need to work and apply our hands to create something so that we can be generous. A definition of wealth that I really like is to produce more than you consume. I think we should be mindful of how we spend our lives so that we produce more than we consume. That's the definition of wealth. The world system teaches us that having a lot of money, having a lot of stuff is the definition of wealth. I think producing more than you consume is the definition of wealth, and I think it's that definition that allows us to be generous. I think one of the troubles of our a money system is that it allows people to engage in a lot of useless activity and still become wealthy. Think about that for a little bit. So what is generosity? Recently, I had an experience that I'll share with you. We've been going down to my wife's sister's place in South Carolina for probably 20 years. We go there nearly every year. And there's my wife's sister's, my brother-in-law's parents, for the last 20 years, they've invited us over for dinner. It seems every time we go down, we go to their place for dinner. And this a month ago was no exception. We went there, and they invited us down Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening for dinner. And as I was sitting at the dinner table, I thought, why do they invite us down for dinner? There was 9 of us, and then some of their family was there, big, long, 24-foot table. And I thought, Don Hirschberger, Don and Ruth Hirschberger are their names. And they don't really have a reason to invite us. Yeah, we're friends, but they always prepare a really good meal, and they invite us. We have a good evening. But I know how many excuses can get into the way of having dinner, having somebody over for dinner. Everything has to be just right, or you don't have the right something to make for them, or you're not sure if they'll like it. You have all those excuses, and here Don and Ruth would invite us over and never, they weren't doing it to impress me or us, or they weren't doing us because they expected anything in return. They were doing it because I believe they are generous people. And Don and Ruthie doing that for us for 20 solid years was really meaningful to me. I think every one of us is generous. And before I studied to share this with you, I would have said not everyone is generous. Some people are stingy. Maybe I'm stingy sometimes. So I judged others. I judged myself when I felt like I was less than generous. But as I considered it, I decided, you know what? I think all of us are generous. Some of us are generous in ways that others don't notice. Others are generous in ways that we don't notice. But if we take a minute, we can find where someone else is generous. They just might not be generous in the same way that we are. So as I considered generosity, as I considered what Don and Ruth Hirschberger did for us, Don has a huge garden, and I think that's one of the things that makes him able to be generous. He has a garden, and he takes care of a garden just to be able to share from the garden. What is currency? Because usually when we think of generosity, we think of being generous with money. Sure, we think of being generous with time, with talents, but generally we think if someone is stingy with their money, they have to be stingy. They can't be generous because they're stingy with their money. So what is money? What is currency? Less than 250 years ago, the indigenous communities in Central America used money as a medium of exchange. Or they used seed as a medium of exchange. Why did they use seed as a medium of exchange? I believe seed defines or fits the definition of currency the best because it multiplies. Seed enables us to be generous. I think that's why God created the earth that way. He created the seeds so that we could care for the seeds, we could care for the garden, we could produce more than we consume, and we could share it with others. We're much less likely to stockpile seeds. Money we can stockpile, we can save, we can hoard. But when we hoard seeds don't really do much for us. We have to use them in order for them to be valuable. So it encourages us to give them away rather than hoard them for ourselves. When we look at a currency like gold is valuable because it's scarce. So gold can generate a scarcity mindset in our minds rather than an abundance mindset. Now, when I say these things, I'm not opposing our current money system. I think our current money system is amazing. It's, when they decide to, they can print more, which I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. I don't understand our money system good enough to make judgments about it, but it seems to me that they could be a little better at doing some of those things. But a money system, we use it today. We enjoy the benefits of it. I just like to stretch your minds to think about the Earth's money system rather than the current system that we live in, because I think God's money system is more real than the money system that we use today. So, in order for something to have value, we have to make it scarce. That's the gold standard. God's standard is things become valuable when we use them and when we share them. The gold standard says it's valuable because there's not much. God's system says it's valuable because you get to use it and share it. So I'd like to give you a challenge. If you had a bucket of seeds, a bucket of wheat seeds, and you knew only two farmers. One farmer had a beautiful farm, and it was productive, fields were well taken care of. The other farmer's farm was run down, and he barely got his crops out on time, he barely got them in on time. And you have a bucket full of seeds. You can give it to farmer one or farmer two. Which farmer will you give it to? I would give my seeds to the farmer who takes care of his fields. And that's a little strange, because normally we would think, well, I don't want I don't want to give resources to a person that already has plenty of resources. Why would I do that? Well, the person has plenty of resources because he knows how to use the resources he has. So my challenge to you is, when you take a look at your time, your talent, your resources, invest in people who know how to take a little and make a lot. And then remember to be generous and share those resources with others. The whole experience with Don Hirschberger inspired me to do something in the Berlin Seeds catalog. So I'm not sure how this will pan out yet, but I'd like to do something in the Berlin Seeds catalog for unreasonable hospitality. So if you have two friends, or if you have three friends that vote for you, and write Berlin Seeds and say, you have unreasonable hospitality, you'll get your seeds for free. Or you'll get your seeds for 50% off. I'm not quite sure how we'll do it yet, but it'll either be free or 50% off, because I'd like to support unreasonable hospitality in myself and in others. So you can watch the Berlin Seeds catalog to see what becomes of that. So lay aside your selfishness, lay aside your jealousy, work with your hands so you have to give, and let others do what others will. And I believe your life will be rich. Thank you very much.